Hi, I'm Lizzie, and this is my mom, and I'll be interviewing her for my code switching project. So, can you describe a situation where you find yourself code switching?
I usually will find myself code switching in a work or professional environment.
And how does code switching impact your communication with different groups?
I think the way it impacts my communication is because I, based on the group that I'm speaking to, the communication style might be different.
Okay, and what factors influence your decision to switch between languages or dialects?
Usually it depends on the environment, the group that I'm speaking with, um, are usually the factors that will influence how I communicate with different groups.
And are there specific settings, such as the workplace, home, or social gatherings, where you find code switching more common?
I think in between the workplace and home is where I find code switching more common because um, the way I communicate or the conversation styles that I'm having would be different.
And are there any specific strategies you use to ensure effective communication when code switching?
Don't necessarily have strategies, it's just more of the setting or the environment that I'm in I that I'm in that I'll usually just make sure that the communication style aligns to the environment I'm in.
And do you feel more comfortable in one language or dialect over another?
So being bilingual, English is my first language, so I do feel more comfortable. But I'm also fluent in Spanish, so um, depending again on the setting or who I'm communicating with.
Okay. And how do you perceive the relationship between language and identity in the context of code switching?
So I think just being bilingual, I'm able to identify whether I'm speaking to an English speaking person or a Spanish speaking person pretty quickly, just because, you know, based on the cultures and the language, I can just more effectively communicate with those groups.
And then, how do you see the role of code switching evolving in the future?
Um, I think just based on the where you use code switching um, might evolve specifically in the workplace because with the newer generations, um, you are probably going to be communicating differently, whether that's through more like social media um, or more indirect in a sense. It's not really person to person because we are, a lot of us aren't in the office. So I think that just depending on how the environments change and the newer generations and kind of their style of communication is introduced is how we'll see that evolve in the future.
This is my friend Amir, who I'm interviewing next. Can you describe a situation where you find yourself code switching?
Code switching. Well, I usually find myself code switching depending on what type of customers I deal with. As far as like in the shop, I might have somebody that's more country or somebody that's more city, so their type of vernacular changes. So I kind of have to match what they got going on and tighten up my speech or loosen it up depending on who it is and who I'm dealing with.
Okay. How does code switching impact your communication with different groups?
Different groups.
Like different groups of people.
Um,
Like you,
like for me,
yeah. So like, how does your communication? How does code switching impact your communication like at school compared to like when you're at work?
I say at school I'm more proper, and at work it's more relaxed. So
Okay.
it's more like what's the word I'm looking for? It's more lenient, I would say, as
Okay.
far as what I can and can't do. More school grounds, there's more rules. Work is more be a good person, I
Yeah.
still say.
What factors influence your decision to switch between languages or dialects?
The pay, being bilingual, that could be one. Being able to connect with more customers, wider base of people. Something else probably would be for my own knowledge, so I could just understand people, not just so connect, but understand.
Are there specific settings where you find code switching more common? So like, do you feel like you code switch more at work or like in social gatherings or like at school?
I say more so at work because I like to have my business match with my face and my person. So I like to come off to people the right way and not have them have a bad image on me just because people have their own conceptions of people. I want to give people the right image that I want them to have.
Okay. Are there any specific strategies that you use to ensure effective communication when code switching?
I try to clarify my words, double check on if they understand me or not.
So like enunciating your words and stuff?
Yeah, enunciating better,
Okay.
type stuff like that.
Do you feel more comfortable in one language or dialect over another? So like, do you feel more comfortable speaking in like a very proper manner, or do you feel more comfortable speaking in like a relaxed manner?
Well, I try to work on being comfortable with the uncomfortable, so I put myself in a lot of, I'll say challenging positions sometimes, because it might be somebody that's straight from out the country, and I'm trying to show them this by showing hand signs and trying to get them to understand, but most of the time, I don't think code switching be too much of a problem, though.
Okay.
Yeah, actually.
How do you perceive the relationship between language and identity in the context of code switching? So like, when you do code switch among different groups of people,
Yeah.
like how does your identity change based off the language that you're using with these different groups of people?
For instance, I've been told that I talk like a white person just because I'm speaking proper, but it's more so just, I guess, code switching so they can feel comfortable.
Okay. And then the last question, how do you see the role of code switching evolving in the future? So like, do you think it'll become
I think
more
everybody.
relaxed?
No, I think
or-
everybody should be able to code switch and be able to turn your home accent on and off. Be able to, because business people, they look for a certain type of image and certain type of look, speech. So it's good to be able to turn it on and off, I'll say.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Corey Bethune, and I'm currently a professional soccer player right now. I can think of a bunch of different situations of where I code switch. I honestly feel like I code switch every day, simply because I am a black woman playing in a sport that is known to be predominantly white, or have other races or ethnicities, and I kind of feel like that I have to code switch to not necessarily blend in, but just understanding what type of environment I'm around, whether that's my teammates or the staff. Personally, I think what influences myself to code switch is the environment that I'm around, the type of people that I'm around. I would kind of, not the conversations are different, but you can just feel that the energy and the aura and the vibe and just who you're around, it's very different. It's hard to explain, but the topics are different, the way they communicate is different, even the way that I'm talking now is different. So you just kind of want to necessarily feel like they understand where you're coming from, but you understand where they're coming from, and to not necessarily be judged or feel like you're lesser than them or you're not as smart. I wouldn't say there's any specific strategies that I use, but just realizing and remembering that you can't say certain words or quotes around a specific group of people. Honestly, I feel like I've been code switching for so long that I'm kind of used to being on both or multiple sides. I feel comfortable with just being me, whether that's true me, the code switch me, or the other code switch me. I don't really have a preference as long as I can be myself within each code switch. I feel like you perceive the relationship by having an understanding, because at the end of the day, you're still saying, or you're still expressing the same message. You're just saying it in a different way to where the code switching of a specific group can understand it how they perceive it. I feel like in the future, code switching could be a big 50-50, whether that's helping or hurting, simply in, if you look at it in like a racist perspective. For example, there's this movie I watched, and this black man was on the phone, and he had his white man voice on, and he was talking to a white man, and it was during a time of racism, and the white man was like, "Oh yeah, I can tell you're a true white person by the way that you speak." Or I just feel like it depends on how someone looks at it and what their true definition of code switching is. Because why is the way that someone speaks makes them in a specific group, if you understand what I'm saying. Also, I feel like it could help those, because now people are looking at them like they're like they're very intelligent, and they're not judging them based off of their looks or any other aspects.